You're listening to the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology Podcast. When we think about TTRPGs, we often associate them with a specific rule system or mechanics. But what if I told you that you could embrace a different mindset and still have an incredible gaming experience devoid of the rules and regulations of whatever system you're familiar with? Today, we're going to dive into the reasons why playing a system agnostic manner can be rewarding and liberating. I'm Robert Walker, author of Session Zero, the DMG to writing great campaigns in any system. And this is my show where I teach collaborative storytellers how to have more immersive campaigns using psychology. Now, very first thing, I want to make sure that you're all aware that I'm recording from a different space than usual today, so if my audio quality is a little bit subpar, I apologize for that, but I did not want to miss an episode for you just because I was away from home. Today's episode will also be a little bit shorter than usual because I am traveling for work and I'm a little bit constrained by time, but I appreciate you all listening. And I wanted to give you some good quality information. I thought this was a perfect topic for that. So let's talk about adopting a system agnostic mindset. It allows for unparalleled creative freedom. And what does that mean, really, a system agnostic mindset? Well, it means that you are decoupling from the constraints of any particular system. The players and the game master will explore a vast landscape of possibilities by mixing elements of different systems or completely scrapping the rules of a system entirely. You may want to mix elements of high fantasy and cyberpunk. Go for it. You might be interested in blending magic and technology in a seamless manner. You can do that too. The only limit with a system agnostic mindset is your imagination. A great advantage of it is that it offers incredible accessibility. You can introduce new players into the world of TTRPGs without it being daunting, especially when people approach the game and they have to navigate complex rule books and mechanics. It can be very intimidating, but by embracing a system agnostic approach, you can reduce the barrier to entry and create a more inclusive gaming environment. This allows new players to jump right in and contribute their ideas in a fully immersive manner, being part of the storytelling without being overwhelmed by the intricate rules of whatever system you might normally be used to playing with. Playing in this way encourages collaboration and shared ownership of the narrative. When you have the rules of a system take a back seat, the players and game masters have the freedom to shape the story as a narrative. It becomes a truly collaborative effort, with everyone contributing their creative ideas, improvising, and you're building a unique world collectively. This fosters that sense of camaraderie and deeper investment in the shared experience that you're having. Think of the liberation that comes from focusing on the essence of role-playing itself. System agnosticism places the emphasis on character development, immersive role-playing, and collaborative storytelling. When you strip away the rules, you let your players delve into their character motivations, the relationships, and their personal growth, and it becomes about that human experience, the emotional connections, and the exploration of the narrative rather than being about the rules or min-maxing or any of the other things that we get caught up as part of the system rules. When all of that is stripped away and you're just left with the story, you have the ability to prioritize fun. TTRPGs are ultimately about enjoyment and creating memorable experiences. When we free ourselves from the rigid rules and the mechanics, you can craft exciting and engaging adventures that captivate the players and leave a lasting impact. It becomes about embracing the rule of cool as the main rule of your game and allows your players to attempt epic feats and succeed in very creative ways, unburdened by overly restrictive mechanics. We've hit on a couple of these already, but let me give you my list of 10 reasons why you should adopt a system agnostic form of role-playing and give it a shot. First, it is that focus on role-playing, which I've already mentioned, letting the system become secondary with the emphasis on immersive role-playing, character development, and storytelling. Let the mechanics take that back seat and create engaging narratives and interactions between your players. Next, narrative freedom. When you have the agnostic approach, it allows for complete freedom in crafting unique stories, settings, and characters without being bound by any rules that are set or limitations. The focus remains on the imagination and the creativity of the players and the game master. Next is accessibility. By not being tied to a system, players with varying levels of experience or familiarity with different systems can easily join your game. This inclusivity promotes a diverse and welcoming gaming environment, which we all want to be part of. Next is streamlined gameplay. With a system-agnostic approach, you are simplifying and streamlining gameplay. This allows for more fluid and more dynamic experiences. The rules can be adapted or created on the fly, ensuring that the focus remains on the narrative and does not get bogged down by mechanics. Then you have customization. Without being constrained by a system, players have the freedom to customize the game to their personal preference and their playstyle. They can mix and match rules and mechanics and homebrew elements to create a tailor-made experience for their characters and for their own personal needs, which goes hand in hand with versatility. When you're not tied to that system, you can explore different genres, different themes, settings without the need to learn multiple rule books, and that allows you for diverse and exciting campaigns that cater to a wide array of interests and preferences. Next, you don't need a mastery of a system to play. You don't need to invest a significant amount of time or effort into learning complex rules or to mastering the intricate mechanics. It reduces the barrier to entry, making it easier for players to jump in and enjoy your game right out of the gate. Next is embracing that rule of cool. With the agnostic approach in your system, in setting aside a system, you're going to prioritize that rule of cool over the strict adherence to the rules as written. Then the game master can lean towards cinematic or narrative-driven outcomes, which allows players to attempt epic feats, to succeed in creative ways, and it doesn't matter what the constraints of the system are because you don't have a system when you're playing system agnostically. You put an emphasis on collaboration without the heavy reliance on the mechanics. Your players are then encouraged to work together to contribute ideas and actively participate in shaping the narrative, which fosters a sense of ownership and investment in the story. And there is a focus on fun. A system-agnostic approach allows for way more flexibility in tailoring the game to the group's preferences and maximizing the enjoyment for all of the players. And remember, the most important aspect of playing in a role-playing game is the enjoyment and the camaraderie and friendship that emerges in this shared storytelling space. And that can be achieved irrespective of the system that's being used. So it's not unfair to say that when it comes to telling a great story, the system doesn't really matter. It is the memories that are created through the shared storytelling experience that endures. The laughter, the suspense, the camaraderie, and the unforgettable moments forged in story become cherished moments that surpass the significance of the system used to facilitate the game. So just remember that while the system can provide structure and mechanics, it is the story that captures our hearts. It's the story that sparks imagination and creates a truly remarkable gaming experience. Let's head on to Tricks of the Trade. For today's Tricks of the Trade, I just want to focus on a couple of ideas that you would probably want to consider if you are going to run a system-agnostic game yourself. And the first one, of course, is how are you going to have characters created if you're not using a traditional system? Well, there's a couple ways of doing this, and I think for me, the easiest method that I have ever been part of happened when I was on a hiking trip with several friends, and one of the people there decided to DM a game for us. We had no character sheets, no dice, no rule books or anything of the like, but we all still decided we wanted to play a role-playing game while we were camping for the evening. And so the DM used a system agnostic method to have us each create a character by basically coming up with the character name and what the character stood for, whether they were a fighter or a magic user or whatnot. And then when we wanted to take an action, we would declare what sort of action we were taking, and the DM would just ad hoc decide if or if not the action was successful, or if it was partially successful, or how it moved the story along with what we did. He would sometimes give us scenarios that were challenging failures when we tried to complete an action, and we would have to come up with creative solutions. But this required no dice and no character sheets and no rules, but it was still an incredibly fun game that we ran while we were on this trip. And I think that is the easiest method. The next method you could do would be to incorporate some rules from whatever system or systems you choose. Like if you wanted to use a 3.5 character sheet to flesh out your character, or to say you wanted to use the spells from 5th edition and the way that worked, or the rituals from Pathfinder 2nd edition, you could incorporate all of that, but then say you wanted the playing to take place around the table and be all narrative. So your character could say, I have this spell and here's how it functions in this book. Will it work in this situation? Then the DM can say yes or no. But then also in that situation, you don't necessarily need dice. You can just sort of use the rules of a system or multiple systems as sort of here's what sort of concepts exist in the world and do they function or not. And then the last method that I would suggest, although it probably would be the one I would suggest least, would be to formally write down what rules and what pieces you're taking from each system and how the game is going to work. But really, if you're doing that, you're just creating your own system, which is a great thing to do if you have a gaming group that wants to have its own system and play games in its own system. That's awesome. And I would also encourage that. But once it's done, you're not really system agnostic. You've just created a hybrid system, which is all well and good. But I would suggest one of the former two. Sort of forget about the rules for the most part. Forget about the stats and the dice for the most part. And just try playing a narrative storytelling game. And just see how much fun you can have with it. I think you will be as surprised as I was when I did it the first time. And I have played many of them now over the years where the role-playing is just the heart of the story. The role-playing is the game. It's not the system that's the game. It's the story between the characters and the NPCs and the challenges that the main characters are presented with and how they deal with them creatively. That is what being system agnostic is all about. That's it for today, Cyclophids, for this short episode. I do want to thank you for joining me, and I think it's probably a breath of fresh air after last week's incredibly long episode. If you would be so kind as to give us a follow or give us a review or a rating, all of that stuff really helps bring other listeners to the show, which can help us continue to grow. And remember that on Instagram at dungeons_dragons_psychology, you can find our Linktree links to our webpage and all of our other links, including our Patreon, where you can become an official cyclothid and help support the show and support its growth. Until next time, my friends, we will see you next session.